YEOUSCH!
Hey everyone, Tony here from the Classically Gaming and Electronic Podcast, and I want to welcome you to the very first episode of our brand new series, Max HP. That's right, this is a series, it's our version of a Let's Play, and we're going to be working our way through different games in the RPG genre. And we've picked the very first game to be Resonance of Fate, a game that was developed by Tri-Ace and published by Sega in early 2010. And we've decided to bring on a team of people. We're going to be working through this game in a 8-week series through all 16 chapters. We're going to try to cover 2 chapters a week. And we are just really excited about this new series here at the show. And I brought along some of my good friends as well. I want to welcome to the show Scott, Vogue Nasty, and Shintai. And Shintai is the consultant here on the show. And he is the resident JRPG expert, and we thought it'd be great to have him on for this series. So, guys, welcome to the show, and we're going to get started. Scott's got a little shout-out for us to get going here.
Yeah, we need to say thank you very much to BMZ Loop for the awesome intro. Can't thank you enough, and we are going to be using the logo and intro for the entire series, so everybody needs to check out BMZ Loop. You can look at the links below if you need any help with some graphic stuff or intros.
Awesome. And Shintai is one of us here who I know has a strong history with the developer of this game, Tri-Ace. And so I'm going to hand it over to Shintai just to give us a little quick history of Tri-Ace and some of the games he's encountered from that developer.
Alright, well, Tri-Ace is a company that was originally known as Wolf Team back in the day. And they, at first, started making a bunch of games for this other company, and they weren't really happy with them. So they made a game called Tales of Phantasia. Now, some of the developers weren't really happy with how that turned out, so they just broke off from them, and they became Tri-Ace. And the first game that they made was Star Ocean for the Super Famicom at the time. That game wasn't released in America until much later for the PSP, which is a remake of that game. Now, personally, the games from them that I played the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th Star Ocean games. I've played Valkyrie Profile 2, and I've played Radiata Stories. And overall, from Tri-Ace, you can get a very strong sense from them that they really like very action-oriented games. Like all the Star Ocean games are all action RPGs. Games where you can run around in the battlefield and hit enemies and learn, different techniques and stuff. Radiata Stories is very similar. And Valkyrie Profile actually, I think, plays a little more similar to Resonance of Fate, but is also very, fast-paced. And I think you can always just kind of expect really good gameplay from Tri-Ace, really good graphics, and also really good music. Most of the music is composed by Motoi Sakuraba, which is a really great composer. He's composed some really great music. And yeah, that's pretty much it. That's the 5-second tour of Tri-Ace.
All right, well, it sounds like you've encountered quite a few of their games, so I'm glad to have you on board for the show. Thanks for coming on, Shintai.
No problem.
Now, this game was released in Japan as well, and it's known under a different title called End of Eternity. And some people wondered if, Resonance of Fate was the sequel to that game, but it's actually just the same game released under a different title here in the U.S. And so Shintai and I are going to start by talking a little bit about the story. Now, we've played through as a team, and you'll see the footage here in the video that you'll be watching. All of this footage is from the prologue in the game in Chapter 1, and so that's what we're covering this week on the first episode of Max XP. And so the game is pretty interesting. It starts with a really nice cinematic scene, pretty action-oriented, and then as it gets into the story of the prelude, we're confronted with a girl named Leanne who is about ready to end her life, and she's basically jumping off of a high tower or a high bridge, and a young man named Zephyr basically does some pretty amazing action sequences and rescues her. And so we're kind of introduced into the game with Vacheron, who is the leader of Hunters. He kind of looks like he's in his mid-40s in the game, but he's really only 26 according to the manual. And Zephyr, who is not the son of Vacheron, but just kind of a companion who Vacheron has mentored, and he is 17. And then Leanne, the girl who Zephyr saved, is 21. And so those are kind of the three characters in your initial party. And the story's kind of all over the place from there. That's all we know so far. You're playing on some sort of a city in the sky. It's kind of built. There's a lot of gears moving in the background. And that's pretty much all I picked up from the prelude in Chapter 1. There's just kind of seems a little bit random. Shintai, you want to comment on that a little bit?
Yeah, I do agree that the story seems a little out there. I'm not really understanding what's going on. It seems that they're only just kind of throwing bits and pieces at us. And I believe as we play through the game, more will be shown to us and we will understand more. But the game, yeah, at the beginning shows very little. But I think the saving grace in terms of the story, however, is so far the characters. I think the characters are really good. They're really interesting. And they have a lot of really good chemistry. They bounce off each other. They have jokes and stuff, and it just seems like they get along with each other. And I think that's a breath of fresh air in this genre, or video games in general, for them to have a sense of humor. Like, you don't usually see that, and I like that these characters are having fun with each other.
Yeah, I totally agree. The characters are what is keeping me coming back to the game so far. I'm really starting to get slowly attached to the characters and wanting to, just see how they play out a little bit more. And it's interesting. I'm still a manual guy. I love a game that comes with a manual, and so I did read a little bit about the prologue in the manual and just a little bit more background. It looks like the Earth has kind of decayed in this world. And kind of human beings have really didn't take care of the Earth and kind of it basically have destroyed a lot of the atmosphere and different things. And so they've built this city called Basel, which is, the book says it's a gigantic structure embedded beneath the Earth, which it seems to me to be in the sky, but the manual says beneath Earth, and it's designed to purify the atmosphere. But the humans are, for some reason, destroying that as well. And so we're kind of on this journey with the characters near the end of time, kind of seeing what happens to humanity here. So even reading that sounds a little bit vague, but that does give us a little bit more backstory. So Shintai, any more comments on the story before we move on?
I heard that it does take a while for the story to finally open up. So I think that's kind of an interesting way of doing it. But I just think it would have been better if we got a slightly more context early on. But other than that, I don't really have anything else to say.
Okay. Let's move on and talk a little bit about the art style and the graphics. I'm going to let Vogue Nasty, Dustin here, kick this off for us. So what do you think about the graphic style so far?
The character models themselves lacked a little bit. That you can tell the age of the game in the character models themselves. Everything else looks fantastic. The environments specifically, they're very detailed. They have a steampunk look. Everything, like the towns are built around all these moving gears, and the weapons are actually pretty faithfully rendered. If you go into the, or if you notice during the fights how the weapons look when they're doing their victory poses, they look very similar to their real life analogs, and they didn't have licensing, so like instead of like one of the first pistols you start with is a 1911 in real life, but in the game, since they didn't have the license, it's called an 1191. So yeah, I think it's pretty awesome so far.
Well, it's cool you comment on that, Dustin. So I don't know if you mind me calling you our resident military expert, but you did serve in the military, so that's cool that you pointed out. I would have never picked that up about the guns, so that they much look like real life counterparts, which is really neat. Yeah, so this is gun-based gameplay, and Scott, Dustin mentioned a little bit about the towns. and just some of the graphic style. What stuck out to you? I know you're an artistic guy, so what kind of stuck out to you about that style? And tell us a little bit about the 2D and 3D gameplay.
Well, I'm new to RPGs, so I need to put that disclaimer out there. But one thing that stood out to me, and our friend Gooch explained to me this is fairly common, the cinematic stuff to me looked like stunning, like really, really good. And then some of the parts where I was walking around, the details were good, but sometimes the graphics would kind of wash out the characters, and I don't know, it was just sort of weird to me. I expected maybe a little bit more detail. So I was a little actually let down with the graphics as opposed to you guys who seem to really like them. But then as far as like the 3D aspect goes, in a battle system you can run around, position your players, and actually use charges that will jet you to the other side of the arena or the battle. But then in a 2D manner, that's how you pretty much get around the world. Whether you're in the town, it's pretty linear so far, or if you're in the overworld, it's very linear and it's in a 2D style. So the battle system seems to be really 3D, and the navigation of the game seems to be pretty much in 2D so far. Has anybody else encountered anything different? Am I missing something there? I don't think so.
No.
No, I definitely think that's accurate. And you started to talk a little bit about the battle system, which is next on our list. And Scott, at the very beginning, I've heard a rumor that you played through this part twice, but at the very beginning, the arena where you encounter to train your character.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that process. It's kind of the trainer for the game that teaches you how to do the battle system, and it's pretty technical. So tell us a little bit about the arena.
There's not too much to say other than it's essential, and it doesn't hold your hand. It does teach you all of the different techniques that you need to learn the battle system, but I needed to use some YouTubing and game facking to actually figure out some of the things. Like the tri-attack, for example, was really difficult for me to figure out. But it's nice that the arena's there, and all of these moves are saved, so if you forget any...
Okay, well, thank you for commenting on that. And I also want to talk a little bit, Vogue Nasty, back to you for the gun-based battle. Most JRPGs, we have a lot of magic, which there is magic in this game, but there, a lot of magic, a lot of ancient-style weapons, swords, different things like that. But in this game, it's all weapons. I mean, we have pistols, machine guns, fully customizable. How do you think that kind of mixes up the action turn-based formula?
Well, it's fresh to begin with. I think that just not having to go in with another sword or another regular weapon from a medieval period is refreshing to begin with, but it really allows for just really frenetic combat. You are, moving really quickly from one area to the next. You can get behind cover so you're not being hit, but you can fire on your enemy. So it just allows for sort of a mix of almost action RPG, or an action, like a third-person action game, and an RPG.
Yeah, and it does really make the game fresh. And I want to talk a little bit about upgrades that you can do to your characters. And so I guess one thing we should have mentioned is kind of how the gameplay happens. And so, well, I guess, Shintai, I'll let you talk about this a little bit, kind of talk about how we go into worlds and then you go out to the energy hexes and, have to unlock new parts of the level. Do you mind talking about that a minute?
Yeah, sure. The way the game works is like the world map is comprised of hexes. And there's different colored hexes. And after you defeat enemies, or if you find certain items while playing the game, you get energy hexes, and there are different shapes, like I said, in different colors, and basically you place them on the world map because these areas that are colored are closed off basically. And when you place the hexes, it opens it up. So if you have, most of it's white hexes. So when you put down white hexes, then you open up the way. And then there'll be like some red ones or some purple ones or something. And normally you would have to do something else in order to get those, like progress the story a bit more. And then it will allow you to get those kinds of hexes. And I think it's pretty interesting and unique way to have a world map because it really inspires you to want to get all the, like, go back in battle and get some hexes so that you can open the way more. And sometimes when you do it, the game gives you items, which gives you even more incentive to want to do it even more. And I just think it's really interesting and makes you want to, go into battle, get 3 hexes, put them in the world map, explore the world map more. It's pretty interesting. I think it's good.
Yeah, it was one of the things that kept drawing me back to the game, and because it adds kind of an exploratory feature, like you said, and so like it balances out. It almost makes it feel like a combination JRPG and real-time strategy game in a lot of ways, because you're unlocking the hexes. You don't want to waste too many hexes doing one thing, and you want to make sure you lay the pieces down. So it kind of mixes up the gameplay in a nice way. And that kind of leads me into the upgrades part that I wanted to speak about for just a moment in the battle system. And upgrades are really key to the game, and you get the sense in the first 2 chapters that they're going to play a huge role down the road. But what I know so far is that your characters auto-level up based on their experience in battle. You can carry different things to enhance your battle experience. So in addition to your initial weapon, you also carry a secondary weapon. For example, the lead character, Vashron, I have him carrying grenades, which I realized when I kept dying on one of the bosses that the grenades just kicked total ass. So I switched to those and was just bombing people like crazy and flying through dungeons. So they are very limited, but it is cool. And then you can also kind of carry maybe an extra piece of equipment to enhance your defense or to enhance your attack or your healing abilities. And so there's all those great RPG elements in there. I have encountered a shop that you can go to in the main city there, and there's a tinkerer and a scrapper and even a boutique where you can upgrade outfits and change character outfits and things like that. But you can actually take custom parts that you've collected from battle and bring them to the tinkerer, and that person will put those materials together and create new items for you. And so there's all sorts of customizable things to dig into, and I'm really interested to comment more on this as we dig into episode 2 and beyond, and just see how the upgrades really play a part. One of my favorite parts, though, is messing around with the guns. I found out you can buy different grips, different magazines, and different scopes and barrels for your guns, and actually upgrade them to increase your effectiveness in battle. And so that's something I've spent a lot of time doing, so I could actually progress the story and continue to move through the game. So Shintai, one more thing I just want you to comment on is the tri-attack and the combos and how you kind of use those in battle.
Sure. The way the tri-attack works, it's kind of complicated. You have these different cursors or anchors or whatever, and it's kind of hard to explain. Hopefully it's on screen, but
yeah, I'll be showing some of this.
When you press the square button, it brings up a cursor in a line, and when you put the cursor there, your character will then run across that, and you can then tell them to jump and then start shooting the enemies. Now the way the tri-attack works is whenever your characters, when all 3 of them have them crossing each other, then once they walk across the areas where they would go to, then you get a resonance point. And when you get up to 3 of them, whoever turn is it next, when you activate it, all 3 characters will run around whatever enemy selected, and we'll just start attacking them all at the same time. And it seems like a pretty unique and interesting attack, and I think it's really cool because the different guns that we were talking about before, you can also put that into play. Like handguns do direct damage, and submachine guns do scratch damage. So you can do scratch damage, which doesn't really knock out the enemy, will just, you'll see like a blue bar, and at first you wonder what that does. But then when you see a character with a handgun shoot the enemy, it accumulates the scratch damage with the direct damage, and it can just completely destroy an enemy. So I think that's really interesting. I think it's really cool. It can add a lot of strategy to the game, and can make you think, well, this person can have the submachine gun, so I'm going to make him go first, and then I get this other character and finish him off with the handgun, or however you want to do it. I think it works really well.
Awesome, and hopefully you'll get everyone gets a chance to take a look at what the Tri-Attack looks like on screen here in the video footage. Real quick, I'm going to close it out with actually Scott and Vogue Nasty. Scott, what is one thing that you dislike so far about the game?
Autosave system. You have to go through the But there's something I don't like. Something I do like is really like the battle system. I'm surprised. I thought I would hate it.
Yeah, it's freaking beautiful to watch, the battle system. It's a lot of fun.
And
John Woo flick.
More involved than what I was expecting, and I like.
Vogue Nasty, how about you? What's one thing you like and dislike?
One thing I like is how different it is. It doesn't seem like anything I've played, at least recently, maybe ever. And one thing I dislike right now would be the whole fighting engine is a little overwhelming, but again, that is something I'll just get used to over time. So
awesome. Well, that I want to thank everyone, because that ends our very first episode of Max HP, the RPG forum here at the Classically Gaming and Electronic Podcast. I want to thank my co-host Scott, Vogue Nasty, and Shintai. Thank you guys for joining us, and I hope you'll join us next week for episode 2 as we cover chapters 2 and 3 of Resonance of Fate.